I have had 3 experiences as of late with subhumans. I was at my children's bus stop when appeared a golden Cadillac Escalade truck. Yes, the business in front, party in back mullet of automobiles. And out of it came 2 young boys wearing flat-brimmed baseball caps. The driver's side window came down, and out of it peered a unshaven, unclean, unholy, thin caveman. He looked down at these 2 boys and said, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, rrr." And the 2 cave boys responded with, "Rrr, rrr, rrr, rrr." And he drove away, listening to country music, of course. Also on that occasion, a young, white, haggard female came to the bus stop with her adorable mulatto child. She bent to tie this child's shoelace and revealed a dried, feces-encrusted thong, above it which was tattooed a mermaid, a flight, a butterfly. She obviously saw me looking at her and thought that I was judging her, although I wasn't. I was just more intellectually aghast. And with a cigarette dangling out of her mouth, bent over, she turned to me and said, "Yeah, the sexed me a black." The very next day, I saw this caveman standing against a fence staring at a cow. I slowed my vehicle to have a better look at him. He was wearing soiled yellow sweatpants and a black tank top. He wheeled his head around and looked directly at me and said, "Roar! Roar! Roar! Roar!" I'd never seen such a thing, so I stayed and looked at him. And then he pulled down his sweatpants, crouched, and caught his feces in his hand, which he then flung at my car. Weeks later, I saw him at 7-Eleven getting a Slurpee. I went to lunch with a friend of mine, and afterward we went back to his office. Next to his office, there was an open door, and I looked into it as we passed and stopped. Because tethered to the leg of a desk was a goat. A goat that was very afraid. Because behind this goat, kneeling, was a dark-haired, Bigfoot-like man, sodomizing it. And crouched beside it was a red-haired gingerfoot gnawing on the back of its neck. And this one looked up at me with frothy blood about his face. It made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Yet I remained and noticed in the background was a man with a big gulp full of whiskey, who was pointing at the side of his head and muttering, "Horse, horse, horse." Later, my friend told me, when I wanted an explanation as to what in the hell was going on next to his office, that this man had once been kicked in the head by a horse, which is even more reason why men shouldn't ride horses, because we no longer need them for transportation, and women only ride them because it feels good on their genitalia. Therefore, for a man to ride a horse, it's just odd and cruel to the horse. My wife and I went to the daycare to pick up our 2 young children. As she was putting them in the car, I was talking to the daycare provider, and I noticed out of the corner of my eye that a man wearing a t-shirt, cargo shorts, and tennis shoes came through the bushes. He had a short-cropped, dark bowl haircut, and I thought to myself, why do grown men wear t-shirts and cargo shorts and tennis shoes? They're not supposed to emulate their 12-year-old sons. Dress like a grown-up friend. But he came from the bushes and pointed at my 2 young children and said, "Ken, same not!" Meaning, I assumed, one of my children was a brunette and the other one was a blonde, and therefore they were not the same, quote, kin, unquote. My wife hustled the children into the car, obviously afraid. I was more in a state of admiration because I hadn't seen a man try to hit on my wife before. And then he placed both of his hands into the back of his cargo shorts. He removed them, brought them up to his face. Widow, he said. And I thought to myself, hey, this special guy's got a signature move. Just like the special kids when I was a youngster. You don't see that anymore. My wife was scared to death and waved me over, and we left with this man-child in the driveway, waving furiously. A few days later, she received a text message from him that said, "Want cuff yerntat," which I translated to her as, "I want to your tits." She wasn't flattered. And she wasn't flattered when he called her a few days later and said,